Hi, and welcome to the video version of our Atlanta Voiceover Studio podcast. This episode is with Paul Schmidt. Have you heard of Paul? He's been around for quite some time. He's a veteran VO talent and has a great perspective about the business side of the industry. Heidi and Paul have a great conversation on the podcast that you're going to get a lot out of, and they cover a ton. Paul's failed attempt at breaking into the voiceover business and how that actually helped him eventually find success. Direct marketing, how to know your value and how to communicate that. Tips for reaching out to voiceover clients, voiceover conference tips, 2 books that have changed Paul's life, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, here's Heidi and Paul.
Paul, so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Maybe as glad as I am to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Paul, we're going to have so much fun. We're going to talk about a lot. You have so much insight, so I'm really just excited to talk more about what you know and just hear your story. But I want to go back because you actually started in radio, similar to Mike and I. But a while ago, you did try and kind of tip your toe into voiceover. But you even said yourself, like, you failed at it. Tell me about that. Like, what led you into that? And then how did you fail?
So a while ago is a bit of an understatement. The year was 1998. Yeah, it was 98. I was living and on the radio in Wilmington, Delaware. It was my first full-time radio gig. I'd been doing part-time radio for a while. I was a morning show sidekick, and with that came a production shift, which means when you're done your shift, they hand you a pile of scripts and they send you into the production studio and go, okay, produce these into commercials. And on one hand, that was awesome training because I was doing it every day. I really got my audio production skills honed all the way down. But I started to realize pretty quickly, hey, my reads sound way different from what we're getting in from the agencies and from national. And I'm like, why? And I thought, okay, well, I sound pretty much like all my colleagues, right? We're all doing roughly the same thing. But I knew there was a difference, and that's when I kind of poked around, and this is really before the internet it was what it is today. But I knew enough to stumble onto this thing called voice acting, and I bought a book by, I don't know whether you know Sandy or not, bought a book by Sandy Thomas called "So You Want to Be a Voiceover Star." And
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And this was 98, 99. I ate this book, Heidi, like I consumed it. And I actually reached out to Sandy and I wrote him, and he wrote back and he was super supportive and blah, blah, blah. And I tried really hard for about 2 years to break into voiceover. And I hit a brick wall and slid all the way down. I was in market 75. Philly was like half an hour up the road, not even. So good God, I took an unpaid internship. I was 30 years old at Mike Lemon Casting in Philly to try and figure the business out, maybe from the inside, maybe learn something there. And I did learn something. I learned that if you, at least in the Philly market in those days, if you weren't on camera, you didn't have the relationships to get the voiceover work. Right?
Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of the VO work was dominated by the on-camera actors in the market. So and man, I did it all. I had demo produced and blah blah blah, and I couldn't get any traction, and it was heartbreaking. And so I did what radio people do, which is I kept side clients for a long time, years. Yeah. Built a home studio. My first home studio had a reel-to-reel, and this is a very specific window. It had a reel-to-reel and a DAT machine in it.
Oh my gosh.
Digital audio tape.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Had a DAT machine, a CD burner, because that's how you delivered stuff in those days.
Yeah.
And just evolved that along. So yeah, that's how radio got me into voiceover.
And just for people that may be newer to voiceover and don't know how it was a while ago, is that really back in those days you would just do auditions, but then sometimes if you were in New York or whatever, you'd actually go in to do auditions somewhere else, so you didn't even have to have any kind of setup at home. And then if you were booked, you'd be booked into a bigger studio. So what you were saying, like, because you weren't in Philadelphia, where there probably were a lot of other studios too and more opportunities to be able to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you got an audition, and I booked a couple of gigs in those days, I was the voice of the Knockout Rose for
Whoa.
whoever I don't know even know what you call it in a Rose language, but they were the breeders, I guess, of the Knockout Rose, and I did their spots for a while. But I took clients would say, "Hey, you did our radio spot. Would you do our cable spot?" Sure, right? That's how it happened. But you're right. If you got an audition, you went into the studio because there was
Mm-hmm.
no low latency audio digital connection in those days other than ISDN lines.
Yeah.
And you had to be a person of means to afford those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was drastically different than it is now.
So then what made you later on decide to take that leap again? Because most people would probably go, okay, maybe this just isn't for me. I'm
Yeah.
not going to worry about it.
So I had my side clients, and it was like I'd get a job or two a month for years and years and years. And honestly, it kind of fell into a hobby. Yes, I was getting paid for it, but I wasn't really pursuing it. I enjoyed it. And I was working for a software company at the time. And I had just moved from Rochester, New York, down here to Richmond. And I was working for the software company, and I sold a very large website to Ernst & Young, EY.
Uh-huh.
And it was a $1.7 million website. And as you can imagine, it took a while to build that sucker out. And in the meantime, one of our project managers said, "Hey, why don't we do an onboarding video for the people that are going to be using this site?" And I said, well, and they knew I did voiceovers and I had a home studio. And I said, well, I'll do the narration and the audio. And we partnered with a video production company and we did that. And EY loved it. And they came back and they had us do 2 more videos. And I think it was the contrast, Heidi, of doing this work that absolutely lit me up and set me on fire within the context of work that I did not love, to put it mildly, but paid me well and I was good at.
Yeah.
And I just saw the disconnect and I went, I got to find a way to do more of this. And so, this is now 15, 17 years later. And what I found out was that the world had changed. Right? We now had YouTube, we had digital video, we now had online coaching. The equipment was like I had a rack of equipment, which is now all contained in my Apollo Twin.
Right.
And so the world had changed in a lot. And the biggest change was that when I started talking to my friends in the business that were now doing voiceover, like they weren't in the major markets and they weren't union, and yet they were making the jump. And I'm like, how does that work?
Right.
And what I realized was that the biggest change was that you can now go after clients directly, right? You didn't need an agent. You didn't need to go through a gatekeeper. You could just, if you were a good marketer, if you were a good people person, you could go and do that directly. Well, hell, I'd been doing that for software companies for years and for advertising agencies. So I thought, well, yeah, I can sell me. That's sure. So that's how I got fired up and re-entered the business.
Yeah. So tell me about how you then set up because selling software, how does that then jump over to selling your voice? Like, what were the similarities that took you from one to the other?
Not a ton. I think there were some skills that were transferable, but when you're selling $1 million websites, it's a very long sales cycle. I mean, you're doing research like you can't even believe for months before you even reach out to the client, right, to the prospect. Whereas what we do is much more transactional. Not that relationships don't matter. They absolutely do. But they're not as complex as what you deal with in high-end software. So I knew I had the ability to reach out to people cold. I knew the processes and the systems it would take. And I spent 6 months just putting those in place, right? And developing my messaging and how did I want to approach clients. What were going to be the target segments I was going to go after. So a lot of the real selling skills that I learned in complex sales did apply to simple transactional stuff.
Yeah.
But you could do it in a much higher volume. And I knew that sales was a numbers game and that the more conversations you start, the more business you're eventually going to generate. And that's what I started doing. But I spent 6 months on that plan before I started executing on it.
That's incredible. Today, I would love for you to contrast how it has changed as far as the pie of where you get your voiceover jobs from. Because I know when Mike and I began, For the longest time, I mean, it was only through agents. We didn't do online casting sites it's been more recent that we've even gotten on online casting sites. But in a way, I see some of the people that started way before us as far as like cold calling or reaching out to customers on their own and getting their own work. And I see that their career overall is so much more diversified and they've been able to weather a lot more than other people that I'm seeing.
I think that's true. And I think the reason for it is while direct relationships with clients don't give you total control over those relationships, they do increase the amount of control you have because you're dealing directly with the decision makers and with the people that you're working with in the trenches. So to the extent that you can help them solve their problems, that you can anticipate their needs, and you can do that in a direct way, right? Like two people working together or you with a team, you can oftentimes have more control and more retention over those relationships. You're still going to have churn. You're still going to have clients leave. I was 6 months into my full-time voiceover career, and my best client said, "We love you. We have 48 more lines of videos to do, 4 more lines of videos to do with you over the next God knows what." And then 2 weeks later, they called and said, "Yeah, the CEO wants a younger sounding guy," right? Okay. You don't always have complete control, but you have more control. To your original question, which is how has it changed? I was on the pay-to-plays in my part-time career, and I carried that through to my full-time career. But one of my first goals was to get off the pay-to-plays because you have less control over rates, you have less control over the relationships, you don't have as much transparency and direct communication with the client, and that's a problem, right? Because that affects your level of service, it affects how you set expectations with the client, it affects the workflow, it affects everything. And I always knew I wanted to handle that directly. So I've been off the pay-to-plays for a lot of years now. Probably when I started going full-time, I'd say maybe 25, 30% of my income was from pay-to-plays. And that's withered down to like, it may show up in the year as a couple $100, but it's less than a percentage. So that's how it's changed for me. I think how direct marketing has changed is the ESPs are much email service providers, namely Google and Outlook. Those are the two 800-pound gorillas. They've gotten much more strict, and this affects not just voiceover, this affects business development in every industry. They've gotten much more strict on what they filter out, what they consider spam. And so business development reps and solopreneurs and freelancers have to work a lot harder to get out even remotely close to the scale that we were able to market on before. And you've got to be much better at it. You've got to be much more thoughtful about who you're approaching, what their needs are, tailoring that communication to them than you did even 2 years ago.
And that probably goes into one of the reasons why you've created this whole, offering for voice talent, the VO Freedom Master Plan.
You got that. It's a mouthful. You got it right.
I was like, ooh.
It's a mouthful. I totally admit that.
So tell me a little bit about that. Like what motivated you to start that and who is it really designed for?
So what motivated me was when I did go full time, I had a fair amount of success, meaning that within 3 years, I was making 6 figures, right, of going full time. And I just kind of thought that was the way the business was. And the more I stuck around, the more I started to realize that, and I don't mean to seem arrogant, but I started to learn that not everybody was doing as well as I was. And to be fair, there were lots of people doing better than I was too, right? But the majority weren't. And I started to see people quit the business and leave the business. And oftentimes, Heidi, I knew they were better voice actors than I was, right? And that's not to self-denigrate. That's just the truth, right? They were some really talented people giving up. And I went, well, what the hell is that all about? And so I made a goal that year, that fall, to kind of dig into that and see what's going on. And what sparked it was the State of VO survey. When I read that at the time, half of us weren't even making $8,000 a year. Like 75% of us weren't making $40,000 a year. And then we were reaching out in that same survey, asked you, how often are you reaching out to market your services? And like 3/4 of us were reaching out to people less than 3 times a day. And I went, are you kidding me? Well, to me, I knew there was cause and effect there. I couldn't prove it, right? So that's when I started talking to people and digging into this. And I talked to 69 voice actors over the course of 75 days on Zoom and to try and dig into why are we so passive, right? Like, why do we sit back and try to hope and wait that work is going to come to us rather than going to get it? Because that was odd to me because I came from a sales and marketing background. And if you sit around and wait for the phone to ring in any other business, it just ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's what got me motivated was I knew we were losing good people, and it wasn't due to talent. It was due to a lack of a skill set or an apprehension about what marketing might be.
Yeah. I love that you did that, Paul. And I also feel like that I've seen a lot of talent that don't feel confident even in the value that they bring to the table. So then they're like, I'm so scared, right? To even reach out to people because I don't know my own value. So tell me about like how like what success stories have you seen of people that have gone through your plan? And listen, if you just go to, we'll link, of course, in the show notes. And this podcast is not necessarily just like a sales for Paul's, but I am so impressed with how you have everything on your website and how you show like the quantitative results too of being able to put this plan into place. And that's so hard in this industry because so much of it is subjective. And you're like, do I have any control over anything?
Well, not knowing our value is a big obstacle for a lot of people. And it's funny because I just got off, I run a mastermind within our community as well. And there are maybe 6 or 8 or 10 of us that get together every week. And there's one guy in there who was in our master plan. He's now moved on. He's in the VO Pro community, but he's not in the master plan anymore. But you talk about the value, and this one particular guy has fought this all of his life. He's got a voice in his head that, and we all have this voice somewhere, that says you're not good enough, right? And he was caught in that cycle of constantly undervaluing his work, i.e. his rates, so that he could get the work. And, being in that mastermind and being in the program and understanding what we teach and having had a lot of conversations with him, we were on the mastermind today, and he said, I just finished 2 audiobooks. I've got another one coming in. I've got a business now. And this is the greatest thing he said this morning was, and I walked away from a lowballer who pitched me a ridiculous rate. And I said to him, dude, you would not have done that a year ago, right? So much of business, forget voice acting for a minute, Heidi. So much of business is just getting grounded in the value that you provide to people. And I'm telling you, folks, like everybody that does this for a living knows how cool this job is. If people could do this for themselves, Heidi, they absolutely would, right? But they can't. Not everybody has our skill set. And so you solve a real, tangible problem for people that they cannot solve for themselves. And you can help them by doing that. You can literally make their jobs and their work lives easier. And that's a service.
Yeah.
And when you get grounded in that, my God, why would you not reach out to people if you truly believe you can help them? Right.
Let's talk about the reach out because I think that also is a challenge for people. What do I even say? Right. Can you even give us maybe 1 or 2 tips of how to go about like the best way to reach out to a potential new client?
The 2 that jump to mind quickest are number 1, remember, this is not about getting work today. Your first reach out is simply to introduce yourself and to begin a conversation around possible future needs, right? And it's those needs, it's not your needs, it's the client's needs. The biggest mistake I see in messaging, and this is true for websites as well, but I see it in cold email all the time. It's all about I, me, my. What I can do, the gear that I have, the awards I've won, all this, not about me. It's not about you. It's about trying to start a conversation around the needs of the prospect, right? Yeah. And you got to show a little bit of due diligence. You have to have reached, if not that prospect, then certainly that market segment and begin to understand what they're like. One of the best things you can do is to build a client avatar. This is a semi-fictional amalgam. Let's say you're going after healthcare video producers. You need to understand the problems and pain points and challenges of healthcare video producers. And so to build a picture of what that ideal client, healthcare video producer looks like, the more detail in which you can build that picture, the better you're going to be able to make it about them and address those pain points and challenges and the crap that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And when you do that, you get credit for not being a vendor. You are now a consultant, right? Because maybe you're not even providing value that may or may not have to do with voiceover, right? So make the messaging about them, understand their pain points and challenges, and work to be a consultant around that to solve their problem. It's not about you and your services and thumping your chest. It's about meeting a need that they have.
So true. And how much does that relate to what we do on a daily basis in voiceover? We got to know who we're talking to, like just know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And you can connect a lot better.
It's no different from being an actor and breaking down a script, right? You need to understand what the challenges are that character is having in the scene, what obstacles might be in the way, what do they want and need, and how are they going to get around those obstacles to obtain that? It's not dissimilar from breaking down, certainly a commercial script. I mean, it might be, obviously different in e-learning and non-broadcast stuff. But as far as being a voice actor, you already have that skill. You just need to apply it to your client, your prospects, and your avatars that you're building.
Yeah. Since your episode is coming out the beginning of March, which is VO Atlanta, so we will all see you hopefully in a few weeks. You also provide a great service for people with voiceover conferences through your website, but can you give me the top tips that you have to how you can get the most out of voiceover conferences and leave feeling like, oh, I got so much value from that?
Well, since Atlanta is coming up quickly, and that is the 800-pound gorilla in our business, VO Atlanta is the largest conference in voiceover. It is what I call a car wash, man. It is 4 days of just getting stuff blown at you, right?
Yeah, lots of colors coming at you. Yep.
Yeah. If you're not careful, you are going to get wet.
Right.
So I treat it like Disney World. You've got to pace yourself. Understand, you're not going to see it all, right? There are conferences. I'm going to one next week in Vegas. It's outside of voiceover. There are conferences where you get 1,000 or 5,000 people in one big ballroom, and you sit there with everybody, and you all consume the same content for a couple of days. Voiceover conferences are not like that. There are multiple breakouts going on at a given time. You might all reconvene for a keynote, or there'll be sessions in the big room and several small rooms. You're never going to see it all. Don't try. Pace yourself. Take a look at the conference schedule before you go and prioritize where you believe your needs are and spend your time on the sessions that you think are going to be the most value. And make sure you protect some time because your social batteries are going to be empty by the end of the day. I'm an extrovert, and I'm telling you, man, I'm exhausted after Atlanta.
Same, Paul.
Right?
Same.
It is because you're going from 7, 8 o'clock in the morning till 8, 9, 10, maybe later. That's another tip. Pace yourself. Right? Just don't go crazy for 4 days. I've started doing this a few years ago. I take an hour every afternoon. I go up to my room. I might audition if I have auditions lined up. I might just sit and listen to the damn walls, right? Because I just need to recharge. And then I go back down and I'm more relaxed. I'm better paced. And it really helps. Schedule breaks into your sessions. Logistically, comfortable shoes, layers, because, hotel ballrooms and conference rooms can go from
cold.
80 to 55. And if Jay Michael's there, maybe even lower.
Right.
So you're going to be hot and cold, and you need to take a sweater, take a couple of layers so that you can adjust. But and bring snacks, bring healthy snacks because you got to keep your blood sugar even. There's a lot to soak up. I apologize, but yeah, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah, I question my extrovertness every year after VO Atlanta. I'm like, am I?
Yeah.
Am I? I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
Because I feel so drained, but I love it.
It is draining because we're all friends in this business, and I understand that. But even among friends that you may only see once, twice, 3 times a year, your social batteries get drained a little faster, right? It's not like we're spending time around family. And again, I mean strictly your nuclear family.
Right.
So yeah, that's taxing. And when you couple that with you're trying to absorb a ton of information, a large percentage of which is going to be brand new to you, it's a lot to digest intellectually and logistically. It's a lot to go through physically. You're on your feet a lot. And then you throw the social component in there. And yeah, I come home and I lay on the couch for a day or two. I don't book anything after VO Atlanta. Like I book those Monday and Tuesday. I might work, but it's going to be at my pace because I know I need the recovery.
Yeah. I totally agree. And your voiceover conference is like a calendar. Is that what you call it? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. I didn't write down what
no, it's
you
fine. It's
call
called
it.
the Done For You Voiceover Conferences Calendar.
Mm.
And this came about because I got tired of every time there was a new conference, I had to go and find the information and put it in my personal calendar and update the links. And I thought, well, crap, if I'm doing this already, why don't I just keep doing it and I can share it with people? So
Yeah.
when you get the calendar, you can subscribe to it, add it to your calendar, and that offloads all the upkeep on me, right? So I update it whenever there's new information, whenever there's a new event added, and it goes, if you're a subscriber, it goes right on your personal calendar. And it's free. And on that page, we also have our video of the VO Conferences Survival Guide, so that if you are newer to conferences, a lot of the tips that I just talked about, we discuss there and a lot more. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, and it's all free, and it's just, I'm just passing along information that I think would be helpful to the community.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. I know
It's
that's
really,
a lot of
it's
work, so
not
thank
that much
you.
work, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, thank you, though. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so here I want to ask you a couple personal questions. So
Sure.
if you have seen Paul's YouTube channel, you know that one, I think one of the things that I love about you is that you dive deep and you have a really good sense of mental health and business health and self-development. And so selfishly, I want to know what is maybe your top favorite book, or maybe top 2 favorite if you can't choose like the, top favorite.
In personal and business development?
Yeah.
The first one, far and away, is James Clear's Atomic Habits. You'll hear people say, well, this book changed my life. I'm not giving a hyperbole. This book changed my friggin' life.
Yeah.
Because it allowed me to get clarity on 2 things. And I say this all the time to my students. The 2 most valuable assets you have are your time and your attention, right? And how you apportion that time and that attention, and the tasks and priorities that you choose to put into how you're spending your time makes all the difference in the world. Especially, you pick, well, okay, if I'm a full-timer, I get that. If that's my full-time income and I really need to be on top of my game. Ironically, you need to be more on top of your game if you're still doing this as a side hustle, because you've got 40, 50 hours a week in your day gig that you can't use to develop your side hustle. So that time has to be even more highly managed, right? And your habits have to be more consistent. And you've just got to be on top of it. And so Atomic Habits to me changed my life. I quote from it all the time. I go back and reread passages and chapters all the time. I subscribe to Clear's newsletter, which is
Such a good newsletter.
I think it's the greatest.
One of my favorite.
It's the best one I've ever seen. It's called 321. And it comes out on Thursdays as well, which also is the reason mine comes out on Thursdays, because he inspired me. But James Clear, Atomic Habits, is number 1. I would say, I don't know if it's number 2, but it's way up there. There's a sales book called Go for No. The great thing about Go for No is you can read it in about 2 hours. It's a very short read, and it basically drives home the point. It's by Richard Fenton and Andrea Walls, and it drives home the point that we founded the VO Freedom Master Plan on, and that is the more conversations you start, the more demo listens you're going to drive, website visits you're going to drive, the more auditions you're going to be offered, the more rosters you're going to get on, the more work you're going to be handed, the more clients you're going to accumulate. It all starts with starting more conversations. And people think, well, gosh, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be, sale. Look, you've got to start the conversation. Get out there and start talking to people first. Go for no means there's a certain amount of no's you're going to have to go through. It's required to get to the yeses, right? And when you understand that and you go, okay, a no is just another step towards another yes, it starts to change your mindset. So I think Go for No by Richard Fenton and Andrea Waltz is another great one.
So good. I love it. Okay, one last question, then I'll let you go. What is something that you feel like you're currently learning right now in your own VO career or journey?
So I, every year, have selected, in the beginning, it was a different emphasis every year. One year it was animation. Another year it was promo. And some years I get halfway down the road into a genre and go, oh, this may not be for me, right? Like I did with promo. My son was smaller. Promo, if you're going to do network promo, it requires you to be, on it all the time. You can't get more than 20 minutes away from your mic. That's not the lifestyle I needed at the time. And I went, okay, I'll put that on hold. For the last 3 years, my emphasis has been on commercial, because I came from radio. Everybody says, even in the course of just general life, hey, you got a radio voice. And I'm like, oh, shit.
You're like, that's not what I want to hear.
That's not what I want to hear. So I've been working with Tina Marasco for going on 3 years, and she has changed my life.
Oh.
And so I'm going to continue. And my job, my goal is to really break more consistently into national commercials. I'm to the point now where I get short lists fairly consistently. I want that one big campaign, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be the start. That's what I'm working on, and I'm still learning. Character development, authenticity, right? Tina teaches quiet confidence. All these things that she's trying to teach me. Have I made a ton of progress? Absolutely. Is there a ton of progress out there to make? Even more? Yeah, there is. So I'll be working with her for a very long time.
Yeah, that's the beauty, I think, about this industry is that there's always something more to learn.
Oh, my God. Well, it's not just this business. It's every business.
That's true.
If you're paying attention, right? Like, you ever get to the point in life, Heidi, where you're like, I think I got this knocked.
Right.
Look out.
Exactly. So true. Joke's on you. I'm just kidding.
Right.
Paul,
It really is.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And I'll put everything in the show notes below and link to all of Paul's stuff so you can go and follow him and learn more about what he has to offer.
Thanks to you and thanks to Mike. I'm sorry he couldn't be here today.
Yeah.
He and I have never had a face-to-face, and now you and I have, at least on the podcast. So when we see each other in Atlanta, big hugs all around, and I can't thank you enough for having me on and giving me this opportunity to chat with your folks and you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for watching the video version of the Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceOverTraining.com podcast. We have a new podcast at the beginning of each month, and you can always find them here on our YouTube channel. If you're a voiceover talent looking for voiceover training, whether new, intermediate, or beyond, you could join the Atlanta Voiceover Studio in person or live via Zoom. Just go to AtlantaVoiceOverStudio.com, or if you want to learn on demand at your own pace, we've got a bunch of great courses at ProVoiceOverTraining.com. Hope to see you at some point, though, either here in person or live via Zoom. Till then, Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceOverTraining.com is here to equip, elevate, and inspire you in your voiceover journey, giving you the tools and resources you need to create the voiceover career you want. Remember, you're building a voiceover business. Think outside the box. Cheers to your success.
Have you spent a bunch of time going through voiceover training only to now feel lost and not sure what your next steps are?
Or maybe you had a little success and started booking some voiceover jobs feeling good, but then it died down a little, and now you're unsure about how to create that long and sustainable career.
Or wish you had a support group to inspire you, hold you accountable, and answer those ever-elusive industry questions that come up all the time?
Well, we've been in your shoes, having to try to figure it all out in pieces here and there. So that's why we want to introduce you to the Atlanta Voiceover Studio and ProVoiceOverTraining.com VO Mentorship Membership.
I know, like you need another membership, right? Yeah, we totally get it. But listen, the right one can make all the difference in a business.
Yeah, the reason we wanted to do this was because so many people go through training, get demos, maybe learn about voiceover from video courses like our own, ProVoiceOverTraining.com, or other places to train.
But when it came to actually putting it into practice and building a business, it felt overwhelming, confusing, and for some, maybe you, paralyzing.
Yeah, we could have created a workshop or class for this, and it would have been worth it. But we wanted a solution that was for talent, that was just more affordable, convenient, and valuable.
We also wanted to be right there with you, helping you along the way as much as we could.
So before we jump into what the monthly mentorship membership covers, let's talk about the extras first.
Members will get first access to sign up for Industry Pro workouts. These are virtual small group opportunities to read for agents, casting directors, or creative directors, receive their feedback, and get to know them better. And we only have 15 spots for each, so they fill up quickly.
And you get $20 off Industry Pro workouts as members. The mentorship membership is only $25 a month, so if you love doing the Industry Pro workouts anyway, the membership basically pays for itself.
And on top of the Industry Pro workouts, we'll also occasionally give members discounts to training and other offerings.
And those are just the bonuses. Each month you'll get
professional training modules. These are live Zooms we'll host monthly along with industry expert guests, and topics range from industry insights, business strategies, performance, and more.
A resource library, a collection of past Zoom sessions, scripts, audition prep guides, tech setup guides, and reference materials for different genres.
Toolkits. These are downloadable resources like vocal warm-ups, exercises, and script breakdowns to build a solid foundation in voiceover.
Plus, and this is a biggie, you'll have access to our private community message board where you can ask questions and get support. Now, we built out this membership to grow with you no matter where you are in your voiceover journey.
So we hope you'll join us. Take the next step toward a rewarding voiceover career with mentorship that grows with you. Join today for only $25 a month.